Hello and welcome to this episode of Sure Is Quiet. I'm Terrielle, your resident Pillow Talk host for all things single lady, finding out what that means for you, how to make the most of it, and what you can do about it, if anything. Today we'll be chatting about, well, what is single, debunking a few of those myths of what it is not, and where to start when you just don't know where to go. There are a lot of good podcasts and shorts asking questions from the perspective of the opposite sex, but it can become a little murky. So I wanted to create a space useful before we even get to adding another person. Now, as we peel back the many layers of this topic, we will be featuring a great pedigree of ladies and gentlemen, single, married, some exes, in upcoming episodes to shed some light on the many perspectives surrounding the life of the proverbial cat lady or rich auntie. So, where does my singles wisdom originate? I'm a woman in my late 30s, never married, no children. Okay, I guess that does make me rich auntie status without the rich part. Like I said, it's layers and levels to this. And while this has allowed me to view things in a different light, unfortunately, it has not necessarily shielded me completely from ghosters, baggage, situationships, liars, users, or straight up dating disasters that have a potential to chip away at you and your heart, like what you have left to give to the right person. A combination of life experiences, wins, near wins, and misses, and those around me experiencing a combination of these things. While I keep the faith, um, I can't say it hasn't affected how far I want to dip my toe in again. But the cool part here is I'm looking forward to also hearing your experiences and feedback because I definitely think things will align more alike than differently. So, once you comb through the noise of the internet, there are a handful of guides and teachers to assist in fine tuning your compass. And I'll be sure to refer to a few I've found helpful and how to find your own. So, let's get into it. I call this first topic No Limit, baby. Debunking social myths and other things you've told yourself. The first one is you aren't enough. Maybe like some of you listening, I've encountered, well, I don't have to say it because you already know it. No, that's not true. Everybody needs to hear it. And in case no one told you today because of that, you are enough. I want you to go back to a time before that relationship or disappointment when it was just you, minding your own business. Here is where we're starting. You are enough for you, and that's all we need here. As I like to say, you can't pour from an empty cup. So let's get you filled up first and ready to receive something new. The next social myth, you'll be destined for a life of solitude. You'll regret it. Okay. Part of these may have been the desire to please your favorite auntie. And in some ways, maybe it's been created to scare single women into hurrying up to create a family or to get in a partnership. Or it could be someone envious of you appearing to be too fancy free and they want to share that load. Single by choice is definitely a thing. Oh, yeah. The guy you turned down at the gas station or that random guy you gave your number to wouldn't hesitate if you called him right now. But I'm sure, as some of you know, desperate pigs usually make for a disastrous results. And on top of that, we don't really have a lot of time to waste like that. Not to mention the whole rigmarole of starting over. If you're feeling overwhelmed by these pressures, ask yourself, is this rush coming from you or something outside of yourself? There are 7 billion people on this planet. Just be open to the possibility, even if you don't believe it yet. But in the meantime, you can enjoy being alone and not being lonely. I would suggest search for singles groups in your area, networking mixers, chat boards, or meetup groups to find people with your similar hobbies. Use this time for the activities you hadn't been able to fit in otherwise. Rearrange your home, read, exercise, research, a restaurant, a museum that you haven't visited. Yes, just you. If you can't be okay with you, what else is someone else gonna do? How to confidently go out alone and where we'll also be covering in an upcoming episode. I know that is supposed tricky for some people, but I enjoy it, and sometimes you wind up with more perks. All right. I've heard that you could be the right package at the wrong door, which leads me to bullet point number 3, that there's something wrong with you. Let today be the last day you think that. Something has just been wrong for you. Could be social settings, environment, and something in your self-esteem coupled with not so helpful thoughts about yourself, which result in picks you pick that haven't been serving you, as in not meeting your needs. A great suggestion is journaling. It's a great way to literally see what you're thinking and to make note of it and where to change it. Especially after going through COVID, while we did experience some factors of that were permanently life changing, but at the same time, there were some aspects we found had a little room for change. People we needed, things that we needed that we didn't, and things that we didn't need that we did. So there is another way, and maybe it just hasn't clicked yet. Now, I know toxic positivity is a thing, so in the name of keeping your anxiety down and mine as well, and saying it's going to turn out one way when we don't really know what the future holds, again, just be open to a possibility and a good one for you. All right, our next topic is turn down your own noise. Take what works and leave the rest. So we got the myth side of the way. What are we going to fill it with? My first suggestion is to be fluid but stay true to you. Growing up, I admired Madonna in the way that she reinvented herself more times than the last Apple phone. I think at the time I thought she was just really creative and worldly. But as I enter my 38th year of life, I too have learned you're going to have to bend to some things before you break. Like sometimes you're the material girl, then bam, the next thing you know, there's too many fillers in your lips. Sometimes you hit the after hours and it's like another time you don't have enough hours. She and a few others have managed to bend to a clock that doesn't stop, but they are still true to themselves. The frame still stands. I don't know about you, but it is really easy to stay in that comfortable place for myself or what I thought I'd found in a partner or job and wriggle myself to fit into it instead of questioning, does this meet my own needs? Is this something I want or does someone want me to want it? Speaking presently and bringing back to the last point, we don't know. We don't definitively know who will be or how this person will come to us. Again, your goal is to stay fluid and say it's possible. Bruce Lee once said, be like water. Say it's possible to things that don't fit your list. Maybe it's time for a new list. Next, keep your eyes on your own paper. You're going to need to use your own compass here. It's not easy, but you're going to have to find your own voice or voices and stick to the boundaries and rules you set for yourself. I have found a lot of great useful resources online and as well as hardcover books that I will share and maybe list to the Facebook group page. Make sure you head over and add yourself to the Sure Is Quiet Facebook group. In future episodes, we go further in depth on what that means, but no plan is a one size fits all, and that's okay. You must find the rules of life that fit your life, whether it be self-help, religion, spirituality, a therapist, whatever calls to you. No one can carry your bag but you. And it's not about judging or comparing another's path. Again, bring it back to number one, which is you. So how do we find these things? What does this mean for you going forward today and tomorrow? The first thing, get real. Now, look, we have plenty of time to get into who done it and why they shouldn't have. And I know I damn sure didn't deserve it either. But that doesn't really matter here. We're quiet in the extra voices, remember? And as try as it may sound, indeed, we play a part in at least 50% of what did or did not happen in these last relationships, personal and professional. They are long gone, or they should be. This is your sign. This is about you, number one, right now. So that's what we're working on. I say take a moment and reflect back and ask yourself, what is this showing me about myself? Something from an objective point of view. Beating up on ourselves stops today. Did they run all over your boundaries? If the answer is yes, then there was a chance there weren't any anyway. What I consider to be agreeable, in my case, for example, and easygoing, sometimes people take that as permission to treat your life like a playground and run all over you. And so, if you struggle to find and set boundaries for yourself, like I did, make it objective. Put yourself in another person's shoes and flip it around. If this was a close friend girl, younger sister, older sister, yourself 20 years ago, ask, would you want someone to be spoken to or treated in the way that is, we know, not desirable? You're not here to be someone's chew toy. If you're not sure and you're wondering if your boundaries were being tested, the first sign is if you're questioning it, possibly. It's also something that you probably felt within your own body. I believe in things being vibrational, and they are. It's that uncomfortable feeling in your body. It's that heat wave that runs all over you. That's the worst. The scenario you replay over and over in your head, or the thing that pissed you off, and you have another way that you keep replaying it over and over. That's the thing. That's the thing that you cut off and make new arrangements for. Now, the tour looks amazing. I'm an early Beyonce fan, so I'm not officially of the Bayhive, but she was so right. You got to be your own best friend in and out of a relationship. Maybe one of the most important points I have here is to ask yourself tough questions. Have you ever asked why being single bothers you or is uncomfortable for you? I just got into him, but Myron Golden, a great motivational speaker, he's got a ton of great titles underneath his belt. But I most recently heard him state that your freedom is when you have nothing to gain, hide, lose, or prove. And you can apply this to anything, but it's a great nugget to chew on here. So you have nothing to hide. Are you trying to cover up some aspect of yourself that you feel a partner would shield? Nothing to prove. Nothing to prove. Is it something you're trying to prove to your friends, family, your parents that you can provide a different experience for yourself than you received? Or nothing to lose? Simply don't like being alone? Why? Remember, if you can't be with yourself, how can they? And nothing to gain. Is it just about checking out boxes for you and insulating yourself? And from what? So, if we go back to the first point about getting real, a lot of these things are external, and that's the caveat, the fun part of all this. I understand these questions may bring out things that you'd rather forget, but remember your healing is in the things that you're trying to cover up. I'm still learning this. You never know how your experience may be a testimony to another. So, you're not alone, I promise. Also, in conjunction with this, you can only carry your bags. So if that means finding yourself a life coach who will have a fantastic one on in the future, I'm very excited. If this means cracking a Bible, getting a therapist, meditating to help facilitate and helping you unpack that, do so. Again, be your own best friend here. Also, take yourself some notes. I'm also a musician, more so instrumental now. But when I was doing a bit more songwriting, still have, a handful of spiral notebooks of things that happened in my day or of men I have Taylor Swifted. One or two of you wound up in a song. I think you figured it out one time. But anyway, true enough, it makes for good writing material. You think it's making sense, but while you can function and still complete your task of the day, it's still a lot to process in your mind, on top of work deadlines and what needs to be done at home. And for those with children, then what do you need to get done for yourself? Write it down. Write it down. Even if it's a spiral by the bed and that's the only 2 minutes you have to yourself to write down your thoughts. You'll be amazed at just the inch more of clarity you get in a day by just giving your brain a word dump of sorts. Who knows? And you may be the next J.K. Rowling. I'm also someone who isn't necessarily big on planning every moment, but if you have a foundation or a layout, you can at least see the forest for the trees. You flip back like the pages even 2 years ago, and you're like, is this the same person? Take the small victories and celebrate your growth. Lastly, get you some role models, girl. Now, I'm all for our empowerment, but that hot girl summer has had some of y'all burnt and charred up. Rise from the ashes, my Phoenix roomies. You're roomies now. If you're not completely sure where you want to go, select a few women who hold qualities you'd like to pull from, even if you think it's out of your league. For example, I say I like the business savvy of Candy Burris, of a healthy, attractive vibe of Nicole Murphy. I'm all for watching Tracy Ellis Ross live her best life out here, and she looks so great. A great example of thriving and living and doing everything you want to do despite social norms or pressures. The long, classy game of an Angela Bassett, the vibrant, fearless spirit of a Kiki Palmer. Ironically, I wrote this before this whole Usher dress thing. That's another episode. The grounded and stand in your truth of an Iyanla Vanzant. Speaking of her book, Piece from Broken Pieces, I read some years ago and could probably stand to read it again, even if you weren't a fan of the series cover to cover. It is an amazing life story of love, loss, divorce, abuse, rising to the top. I think there's a story she shares of breaking down in the middle of the grocery store. Like, amazing. Amazing. And additionally, I loved Janis Joplin growing up. Another Texas girl, didn't quite fit in, but still didn't give a damn, and she made a hell of a way in spite of. And all these women include a dark side and their own missteps, which we all have, that can't be ignored, but also shouldn't be shamed either. It's yours to own. It's a part of your story. So thanks, y'all. Thanks again for listening. A few takeaways from this episode are: drop those norms and pretenses. You are enough as you are. You're on your own timeline. And recognize and turn off the negative commentary that you've been telling yourself. It's not helping. Also, find and create your own compass. Others can serve as a template, but you will still ultimately need to ask yourself what didn't work in the past and what does work for you in your current and future life. Next, journal and ask yourself the tough questions because no one else is going to do it. It helps us get to know ourselves and what can optimize our lives. Thanks again, guys. So our next episode will take on how to address why are you single and other things that aren't people's business and how to address it. This is going to be a fun one. If you like what you heard, be sure to like and share on IG, Instagram, and YouTube at Sure Is Quiet Podcast. Also on Facebook, invite yourself to the Sure Is Quiet Facebook group to answer questions and leave feedback. In fact, next week's question, how do you handle nosy people in your dating life, is already up. So I'm looking forward to reading your responses or best avoidances. Have yourself a wonderful week. Continue to be beautiful. And I'll see you next week. It's a date. This podcast was created, written, and produced by me, Teriel. The views and comments are strictly my own and for entertainment purposes only. Until next time, Sure Is Quiet.